Hi, I'm Ben.
And I'm Josh.
And this is the Bad at Magic podcast, a podcast about games, life, and other things. And welcome to episode 62.
Ben, have you thought about retirement lately?
You remind me of it more than anyone, but of course.
Well, I guess that's true. I mean, you're being quote-unquote forced to retire from the military. But I meant like actual retirement, like actually withdrawing yourself from the workforce entirely so you can focus on your disc golf and your professional Magic career.
I mean, I haven't. I feel like I've still got a good 20 years left, but both my wife's mother and my parents have all retired within like the last year, so it's definitely been on the forefront of my mind.
Gotcha. So it's out there. And so do you know what the age that most people start thinking about retirement is in the United States?
No, tell me.
It's the age 62. And the reason for that is that's when they start getting letters from the Social Security Administration. Hey, by the way, you've got these benefits that are sitting out here waiting for you.
Now, at 62 right now, they're disincentivizing people to retire, aren't they?
Oh, man, I'm so glad that you showed even a modicum of interest in this topic because, like I talked about, last week I went to a tax seminar and we actually had like a whole 3-hour discussion about Social Security and how it's calculated and all that. And boy,
turn on the fire hose, CPA.
Not a CPA yet. Do not take anything I'm about to say as financial planning advice or tax advice. I am not responsible for your financial condition after this podcast.
I love that you gave a full-scale disclaimer. Just tell me, man.
Thou shalt not sue me for the crap that I say on a podcast. Okay. So, no, the idea is, yes, you're correct. You can take Social Security starting at age 62, but you are disincentivized because you will reduce your benefits forever the earlier that you take it. So if you were born in 1960 or later, and you decide to take out your benefits starting at age 62, you have a permanent reduction of 30% forever.
Yeah.
So you get your full benefits.
Hang on, I get to do some fast math.
You get your full benefits 5 years later. So if you wait until you're 67 and start drawing, then you get 100% instead of 70%.
I don't know why we still say that, Josh, because there's no one left that was born prior to 1960 that is younger than 62.
Well, because that's how the Social Security Administration has it drawn up on all their charts. They have this phase-out range if you were born 1937 before, all the way up to 1960. Like, it's a complicated chart. I can send it to you. Nobody does math like the Social Security Administration. It's so wonderful how complicated they've made this whole thing.
Well, yeah, like I said, they're trying to disincentivize people from basically withdrawing so that it can continue to draw interest and pay other people's benefits.
You would think that, but this has all been set in law for years now. Like, you can conjecture that they're trying to stop people from taking it now so they can have the money to support the system later. But the fact is, all of this was set in stone years and years ago. They've just been running and doing their thing forever now.
Are you sure? I feel like it's changed recently. Like, there have been additional disincentives or incentives.
I can't speak to that because I don't know enough off the top of my head. I did pay attention to this class, but only for the tax stuff. So anyway, 62, this is episode 62. There's the tie-in. But while we're talking about 62, actually we need to be talking about 67. Everybody hearing my voice, wait until you're 67.
Okay, good. That's a good thing to remember. Now, Josh, we've been doing the Bad at Magic podcast for over 2 years now, and this is our third Christmas together on the podcast, but it's the first time we've ever actually recorded on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas to you, Ben. I feel like this is the first year where there's two explanations. Either A, our spouses appreciate what we're doing on the podcast so much that they give us this time during this holiday to record for all of you people hearing my voice right now. Merry Christmas. Or that our wives are so fed up with us, they just want us out of the house for another couple hours.
Yeah. We'll find out if she comes in here. She's like, what are you doing in here?
Is she not aware? Did you not tell her what we're doing?
Might not be. I mean, we've been doing this every 2 weeks on a Saturday night with very few exceptions for 62 episodes now. It's starting to be the part of the rhythm of our lives.
I do know that my wife plans these nights out for all of the shows that she wants to watch without me.
Yes, I'm sure that's what she's doing out there. Although, because, oh dang, this is going to be a spoiler. Spoiler alert for Spider-Man Away From Home or whatever it's called. Can't Get Home. Crap, what's the name of it?
Well, now you've got me. No Way Home.
No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home. They put Charlie, whatever the crap his name is, from the Netflix Daredevil series, Matt Murdock.
Uh-huh. I don't know the guy's name.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, he was in there, and now she's going back and watching those because she never did the first time.
What, Netflix or Spider-Man?
The Netflix Daredevil series.
We watched a couple episodes of that, and I thought it was okay, but it was a little too gritty for my wife. And so
it's definitely gritty. I think that's why she skipped it the first time around.
Yeah, and so then it falls into this pile of my wife saying, oh, well, you can watch that on your own time. And then I'm like, yay, I have something I can do by myself. Wait, I don't have any time to myself, so that pile just keeps getting bigger.
But it was definitely one of those moments that's really good. I don't know, just really tickles the fanboy bone when you've watched these other properties that kind of existed in this foggy universe that you didn't know if it was connected or not. And now all of a sudden the character is here in the universe that you've been consuming. And you're like, oh, these things are connected.
That does feel good. And Marvel are the original creators of that. They're the first ones that had multiple...
Yes, but this was Sony doing it. I mean, Marvel, yes, but yeah.
I was talking about Marvel, the comic books. Back in the 30s, they did this. They were the first ones to do cross comics and the plot lines jumping from one to another. But that's fine. You go ahead and sit in your MCU only Sally Come Lately Marvel Universe fandom.
Dude, preach. That's awesome.
No, I don't want to. I'm not going to be that guy. I liked all the Marvel movies before they were cool. No, I'm not going to do that.
So what'd you guys do for Christmas today?
So I told my children, I threatened them with bodily harm if they woke me up before 7 a.m. on Christmas Day.
Yes.
And they had me up at 5:45, Ben.
Unsuccessful. Parenting fail.
Did not work out. We heard them, they did the thing that kids do where they're like, oh, look at all the presents. Shh, we have to be quiet or we'll wake up Mom and Dad.
I love it. I remember that. Oh, man, you're taking me back.
So that was that. We did the presents thing. We sat around the couch and we opened all the presents and just collected all of the lovely, thoughtful things that my wife and Santa Claus had brought to all of us throughout the year.
That's so great.
And then watched my wife open the pathetic excuses for gifts that we got her. And I'm just reminded of that SNL skit. It was a music video where all the families doing a rap video about how awesome their gifts are. And then every couple of seconds they jump back to the wife and the wife goes, I got a robe.
Yeah. I don't know. I successfully did a thing that I really appreciate that happens at holidays sometimes. And that is, to me, the perfect holiday gift, at least for a man like me, that when I need something in my life, I buy it. I don't go, I really need socks. I'll drop some hints and wait till Christmas. No, I go to the store and I buy some socks.
Okay.
So there's a special category of things that are things I would like to have, but that I would never buy for myself. And if you can find something in that space and buy it for me, that's the perfect gift. One year I got Apple AirPods. It just wasn't on the list of things I would buy for myself. But once I got them as a gift, I can't live without them. So I was really going for that this year. And my wife had been dropping hints that she wanted to do something for fitness, but something very specific. She was interested in indoor climbing.
Oh, okay.
And there's an indoor climbing gym about 5 miles away from her. No, a mile away from her house. It's a 5-minute drive. Easy, super easy to get to. And it's great. I went and checked it out. She hasn't been there yet. So I ordered a climbing harness, a chalk bag, and a pair of shoes so that she'll have everything she needs, and bought her a punch card to go there. So she opened up this box and it was all in it. And she was like, oh, I wanted this, but I would never have bought this for myself. And I was like, ka-ching.
Yes,
I did the thing.
Yeah, you do the elbow drop yes, I did it. Yep. Successful. Oh, well, Congratulations on winning thanks. Christmas this year.
Yeah, did okay with the kids too. Yeah, I think, with 6 kids, it's always going to be a little bit uneven and you just hope they aren't keeping a really close tally.
You've talked about this problem before where you do your best to try to spread it around, but sometimes it's easier than other times.
Well, my third child he always gets the short end of the stick when it comes to computing, but lately he's shown just a tremendous propensity for being creative. He makes music, he does animations, he creates, he publishes videos. He had this one Minecraft video he made that went ultra viral on the internet, thousands and thousands and thousands of views, and he's just really creative, but he's always begging for his turn on the computer. And so he really wanted a laptop. So we got him a good one. I think we spent $800 or $900 on it, but I can't spend $900 on every single kid. So they all know that he got the big gift this year.
I see. And so does the big gift rotate? Is that Is that a capitalized the big gift? They just move from person to person?
Yeah, it was never a deliberate decision, but it kind of goes like that.
That's funny. I want to piggyback on your talking about how you go out and buy the things that you need, because I am not that. I am.
Oh,
I'm
really?
I'm not even the opposite of that. I'm the guy that's in the closet and like, I only have one pair of pants that A, still fit, and B, don't have any holes in them, or C, aren't stained from my previous career as a pool guy.
And then you start dropping hints for Christmas?
No, I don't drop any hints. I just go, that's unfortunate. And then I make sure I always have clean pants. Like, I keep washing that pair of pants.
Are you like that stereotypical guy that hates shopping?
I just don't do it. Like, it's not that I hate it. Like, I would go buy a pair of pants, but here's the thing. I'm a large person. I'm in this weird space where I'm not big enough to go to big and tall stores, but I'm too big for like the department stores. And so it's all going to be like online shopping, which is dicey because you got to find brands that I'll actually cut correctly. Anyway.
Okay.
So Christmas for me this year was fantastic because my wife bought me, and this is not an exaggeration, 5 pairs of pants. And I could not be happier with her.
All right. My mother-in-law got us all pants. So we're all like, what did you get? I got pants. What did you get? I got pants.
Man, pants is one of those gifts that when you're 10 and you get pants, you're like, oh, I got pants. But when you're like 30 or 40, you're like, oh, yes, I got pants.
So, okay, if you're worried about getting the right size and the right brand and stuff like that, but your wife got you 5, like she must be ultra confident that they're right. How did she figure it out?
Because years and years ago, she bought me exactly the same pair of pants. And then I put them on. I'm like, these are great pants. And whenever I wore them, I would mention, these pants are wonderful. And she just has them like favorited in our Amazon account somewhere. And she just reorders them as necessary.
Okay. Wait. So they're 5 pair and they're exactly the same thing?
No. Okay. So I got 2 pairs of pajama pants. And those are just.
Okay.
And then I got 2 pairs of actual like wearing around pants. And then.
So you're not going like full CGP gray or Steve Jobs, where you just open up your drawers and it's all the same thing?
It's like, I have decided that this is the only outfit I will ever wear. No, I'm not that guy. No.
I wear Levi's 501 jeans and a black mock turtleneck. That's it.
I have...
Slip-on Vans.
When it comes to pants, though, like lower body wear, yeah, it's very, very basic. It's like I have 2 colors. I have gray, and then I have like a khaki, whatever flavor of khaki, I don't care. And then I have my plethora of nerdy print T-shirts.
Yes. Right. Ironic T-shirts. Good job. So, the kids happy?
The kids are happy. The kids are always happy. They were happy before they woke up this morning.
That's right.
I mean,
but they were enjoying the excitement. You sent me a photo of a plate with half-eaten Rudolph carrot and some cookies, and you said the lie lives on for another year or something like that.
Yes, the kids made sure. Like my daughter was freaking out yesterday at 3 p.m. when she's like, "We've got to leave out cookies for Santa." And we're like, okay, we will. And she's like, no, we got to get the plate. I'm like, no, settle down. We're not doing that right in this second. And so she was very much intent that making sure that Santa Claus got his cookies and his milk. So we left that out. And then it was funny because while we were setting this stuff out, I remember my wife was pulling out a carrot for Rudolph or for the reindeer or whoever. And she just pulled a carrot out of the bag, like unwashed, unpeeled, just like a carrot. And I was like, oh, don't you think the reindeer would appreciate a peeled, washed carrot? And she goes, and then, no, but my son in the room goes, they're reindeer. They don't care. And my wife goes, yeah, they don't care. I'm like, oh, well. Yeah, but the reindeer who actually has to eat that carrot, spoiler alert, he's got 2 thumbs and is talking on a podcast. Like that. So
that is an example of requirement roundup, like we have the military. You know, like when I was a kid, it was just cookies and milk, and then there was this weird like fitness trend. It was like, well, maybe Santa wants to eat healthy, and you're like, I don't know, putting out quinoa in a kale smoothie or something. But where did the carrot come from? How did that happen?
I don't know. That's always been a thing for me. Is the reindeer have got to have a carrot, not just a snack for Santa.
They don't come in the house. When did that start?
All right, what you're talking about was mission creep. Let's talk about the biggest mission creep of all when it comes to Christmas is that stupid elf on a shelf. Did you ever do that?
No. And then we never did the cookies and milk thing. But here's where I want to get to with that.
Okay.
Do you guys do the thing where you leave evidence? Like you take a bite of the cookie and put it down, or drink some of the milk and leave it?
Yes. We ate 2 of the cookies.
So what's the point of that? Like who does that? No one eats a bite of a cookie.
A guy who's got places to be, Ben. He's got 4 billion other households to visit tonight.
Okay. You guys do Elf on a Shelf too?
No, we are avoiding that like the plague. That's what I was talking about. My kids keep asking, we got to get an Elf on a Shelf. And this is how we've dodged it so far. We're like, those are only for the kids that are like on the fence. You guys are fine. As long as you're good all year, we don't need an Elf on a Shelf for that in-depth.
Very, very good.
Yes.
I enjoy the mock Elf on a Shelf thing, so I post a few of those on the Bad at Magic Facebook page every year. You know, like if you've heard of Elf on the Shelf, now get ready for Wookiee on a cookie or Goomba on a Roomba.
I think I sent you that one because I know you love those.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so great.
My wife and I have avoided this Elf on a Shelf thing because now the standard is that the Elf on the Shelf is alive and does random things every night throughout the entire month of December.
Yes.
And that just feels like homework to me, like creative homework every night for a month. And
no, thank you.
I remember my wife handed me her phone once, goes, read this. And it was a series of screenshots of a text message conversation where they forgot to do the Elf on a Shelf one night, and so it didn't move. And so the kids freaked out, like, what happened to our elf? And they have names. Like, did the magic go away? What happened? And so the mom, thinking quickly, changed the name of her sister in her phone to Santa Claus, and then texted her sister and was like, our elf lost the magic. What do we do? And the sister completely took advantage of the situation and was like, well, here's what you do is you just got to do a quick little easy ceremony to bring the magic back to the elf. First, you draw a Christmas star in salt on your kitchen counter, light 5 candles, one at each point, lay the elf in the center. Yes, and gave her detailed instructions
for doing a satanic ritual on the kitchen counter.
Not a satanic ritual, just a ritual. It wasn't specifically satanic, but it was like everybody hold hands, everybody recite this incantation. Like it was just this huge pain in the butt for her sister to do for her kids.
That sounds like the worst. This reminds me of the thing like when you're playing the Tooth Fairy game and like you forget. I remember that panic when we used to play that game. You're like, oh my gosh, I forgot it's morning. I hope they're not up yet. And you run in there and they're already up. And you're like, crap. Now I gotta pile on lies.
We did that once, but then we had the perfect solution. Is the next night was like, maybe she was just busy. Leave it again next night. And then the next night we had to be absolutely sure. But then I took a piece of paper, and Carter, if you're listening to this in the future, I'm sorry I lied to you. And I cut a tiny little corner of a piece of paper out, and then in my smallest possible handwriting, I wrote a little sorry apology note for being super busy and signed it TF and put it in with his money.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah. We got one kid a bike. Having a bike in the living room with a ribbon on it really just makes the room look kind of magical with the Christmas lights glinting off a new bicycle.
I feel like that is like the signature Christmas gift that you give somebody, like you give a kid. In all the movies, that's what you see, the big pile of presents and then a bicycle.
Yeah, it was. It really felt that way.
My kids got a lot of books. They got a lot of puzzles.
Did you get your electric car back for Christmas? I told you I'd follow up on this.
You did tell me you'd follow up, and like I'd like to say it was a Christmas miracle, but it wasn't. It was a Christmas Josh against bureaucracy, is what it was.
All right, let's hear the story.
Oh, geez, Ben. So it was 33 days since I had turned in my car because the back seat belt stopped buckling.
Okay, I remember. Yeah, you took it in. They're like, the seat belt's not working. We can't release the car back to you. They kept it for a month. They gave you a loaner, right?
They gave me a loaner, but the loaner was gas powered. I don't know if you've noticed lately, but gas prices are a little bit steep.
Yeah. Okay.
So which is annoying for an electric car owner to be going to the gas station.
Well, did you have a full month where you were operating your electric car from home?
What do you mean?
How much did it raise your electric bill?
We only charged it at night off peak, and we honestly haven't seen a difference. And
wow.
Well, it's Arizona. We're getting cooler, so the AC isn't running as much.
Okay,
I'm assuming it's
you'd
just
have to
taking over
compare
that.
it to this month last year.
Yeah, and okay. I don't have those bills, but honestly, it's not noticeable. Like it's not like tremendously bad.
Okay, so the Volkswagen dealer had held your car hostage for a month for want of a seatbelt piece.
Yes, and so I called them. I'm like, guys, it's been a month. What do we do? And he goes, nothing I can do for you. I'm like, can you take a seatbelt out of one of the other ID4s on the lot and like hold it until the part comes in, and then you can sell it after that? And they go, no, there are no other ID4s in the lot. The only ID4s that show up are ones that are already sold. Like, okay, can you sign a waiver? No, we're not doing that. That's got to be corporate.
Wow, you were really pushing it.
I wanted my car back, and I told the guy that. And then finally the guy gave me a 1-800 number to corporate. He says, like, we're doing everything we can, but we're just the dealership. Call corporate office. They're pretty good about helping people out. Okay, fine. So I call corporate office, and I tell them
why didn't they do? I'd be like, why didn't you do that for me?
Because they're two distinct legal organizations, Ben. There's the dealer, and then there's the corp. Don't get me started on this, because they kept kicking. It doesn't matter. I call corporate, and I'm like, listen, I just want my car back. Can we do something? Like, we are going to take care of this for you. You are so important to us. We are going to make sure we make this right.
I like getting a hold of that.
And I was like,
that kind of person.
I was like, yes, that's outstanding. She's like, I'm going to create a ticket. I'm going to escalate it, and it's going to go straight to your regional manager. Like, that handles all the dealerships in the entire Southwest United States. I'm like, that's outstanding. This is what I need. I need outside-the-box thinking. I need somebody with some authority to help me. Outstanding. Okay, he'll call you back tomorrow.
You're making my heart race.
All right, so the guy calls me back the next day, and he's super nice. He's like, hey, I heard about your problem. We're going to get this taken care of. I'm going to call the parts place myself, and I'm going to figure out what's going on. I'm like,
I think the fact that you waited a month before you called them helped. I mean, not you'd have rather just had it back within that month, but that's above the threshold where you call them and they're like, that's within a reasonable amount of time for this to have already gotten taken care of by itself.
I may have also been dropping into my conversation every time I talk to somebody different that this is past the Arizona state lemon laws. Technically, they are required by law to either give me a new car or buy mine back.
Very lawful evil of you.
Well, that worked with the dealership. That got them a little skittish. But when I told that to the corporate office, it totally backfired. They're like, oh, did you want to sell it back? That's outstanding. We'll buy it back from you right now. There's like 3 forms. I can have them emailed to you in 36 seconds. I'm like,
okay.
No, corporate. I don't want you to buy my car back because I'm sure they could flip it for like $20,000 more than it's worth right now.
Make profit, yeah.
It's like, no, I don't want the buyback. Anyway, so that didn't help. So regional manager, guys helped me out. Super nice on the phone. He calls me back the day after that, and he goes, okay, so I got a hold of the parts shop, and I can confidently tell you that I can get an ETA on that part by December 28th.
What?
And I was like, excuse me? I was like, an ETA? And he's like, yeah, an ETA. I'm like, you're not even talking about getting the part. You're talking about
finding out when you're going to get the part.
December 28th, which was at that time 2 weeks in the future. And I'm like, thank you for almost nothing. Like, there's got to be another solution to this. Like, can I please just sign a waiver and get my car back and drive it and use it and just not put anybody in that seat until you guys get the part? Because right now you're just holding it hostage. It's sitting on a lot. Have you even plugged it in? Has anybody moved it so the tires aren't sitting in the same spot for a long period of time? She's like, oh, well, that's the dealership. You've got to call them and deal with that because we have
gosh.
no.
No. Your answer to all of those questions is no, and no.
All right, so I called the dealership back, and I didn't call the parts department. I didn't call the service guy. I asked for the general manager. Like, give me the guy who owns the building that you are sitting in. And I was very straight. I'm like, look, like, I'm at the end of my rope here. Like, you guys are basically holding my car against my will, and I have no options. The seat, like, if the driver's seat belt was broken, I completely understand the safety issue. It's the back seat. I need this to commute to work by myself. Please give me my car back. I will sign whatever waiver you put in front of me. And he's like, oh, and the general, again, this is why I asked for the general manager, because the guy owns the place and he's allowed.
He's the one with the power to waive the procedures.
Yes, and he goes, let me talk to my lawyer and see if we can come up with some verbiage. And if we all agree on something, then yeah, that's something I think we can do. And he called me back the next day, to his credit. He says, hey, it worked. I did call my lawyer yesterday afternoon. We've got like a 1-paragraph thing. Let me read it to you real quick. And it's basically exactly what I said. The back seat belt is broken. I agree not to put anybody in there. I am taking this car against the recommendation of the dealership. I do not hold the dealership liable for any damages that may result from this seat belt being broken. And yeah, I'm good with that. And I drove down the next day and I got my car back.
Do you think you could, if you had just fought for that same arrangement the very first day, you could have just left the first time with your ar?
Oh, absolutely not. Because I asked the guy.
You had to have the time pass for the system to loosen up a bit.
Yeah, it had to. Everybody had to realize, if it was just one day and me throwing a fit, that's just a customer throwing a fit. If it's 33 days and you guys have done nothing, and I have done all of the extra steps by calling your corporate office that you told me to do, and there's still nothing, that's when I feel like everybody started realizing, okay, yeah, this kind of sucks.
That's an interesting versus bureaucracy thing. there's just an amount of churn that has to happen in a system in order for it to loosen up and release some of the things that should otherwise make it through.
I want this on the record that my car is still not fixed. That seat is still unusable. Like
they still owe you a part.
They still owe me a part. And like they said now I signed my car out and I got a text message saying, "Oh, thanks for using VW service." And I immediately called them back like, "Hey, you didn't close me out or nothing, right? You still ordered this part and you're going to call me when you get it." He's like, "Oh, yeah.
But you're not going to let them touch the car again until you know for sure they have the part in hand, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, when I called down there, Tim, I'm going to ask him, like, Tim, are you holding it in your hand? Like, can you physically feel this part as you're speaking to me? Because if the answer is no, then I'm not coming down there because of what happened last time.
Right. I would be the same. I'd be skittish like that.
At one point, I was so frustrated. I was on the phone with corporate. I'm like, it's been 33 days. Like, if I'd have known it was going to take this long, I'd have commissioned any machine shop in this state with a CAD drawing and be like, "Hey, make me a part from scratch." And it would have been done by now.
Right. And costs less time and effort than this.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that reminds me of the time when we took a second consecutive overseas assignment and all of my children's passports had to get renewed. And we sent in 7 passport forms, and the passport agent, who was an Air Force staff sergeant, forgot to sign the 7th form, and the passport office held them all up for like a month until we were stuck from traveling, and it was a bureaucratic nightmare.
Yeah, thanks, staff sergeant, for not doing your only job.
Yeah, all she did was not sign the 7th form, and it was a nightmare. Anyway, to anyone that's listening, if you ever need to renew a minor child's passport that they got that will have reached 5 years of age before they turn 18, here's something you need to know. When you try to renew a child's passport overseas, you have to provide a photo from every year of life so that you can prove that the person whose passport you're renewing is the same person who got the passport in the first place.
Who? What? That?
Yes. Every single one of my children, we had to provide 5 photos from each of the intervening years from the time their passport was issued.
Ben, there are times in my life when I hear of a rule, and I'm a big rules guy, by the way, but there are times
we'll talk about that in a minute.
There are times when I hear about rules that I read them and I understand why, but at the same time, I just have the overwhelming urge to slap the person who wrote it down.
Do you know the military maximum, somebody poops their pants, everybody has to wear a diaper?
Yep.
This is that. There must be someone who was trafficking in persons or something like that caused this rule to be written.
Oh, man, that's
abducting children or whatever, transiting international boundaries with...
That's the weirdly positive version of this. Like, if it actually happened and then they plugged this hole, the other side of this could be like... the conjecture, hey, what if somebody starts using these passports to traffic children? We should tighten this up.
No, these things cause too much friction. It's like the intersection. You have to have like a fatality before the city will fund the stoplight. It's like that, that this happened. I don't have specific evidence, but that's what I think.
You do have specific evidence of a sidewalk that was poorly maintained, causing bodily harm, and then the city turning around quickly and fixing that.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm glad you got your car back.
Yeah, it's like, yes, I'm super happy that I got my car back because I do genuinely love that car and I love driving it. And it's so much better than that crap loaner that they gave me.
And you don't got to buy gas anymore.
Well, on the downside, yeah, I'm still I'm in this weird limbo where my car is still technically in service. And they told me they were going to reimburse me for all the gas that I was forced to buy against my will.
Yeah, right. That was the same as like when I bought my car online and it was broken when they delivered it and they promised they'd pay back for the service I had to get for it. I still have yet to see that money.
This is weird that you're more negative on this topic than I am because I have a little bit of hope remaining that they might reimburse me for
You did get the very positive corporate office that wants to have another satisfied customer, so maybe you will.
I will tell you this, Ben. This was the first time in my adult life that I interacted with a bureaucracy in a serious way, and I didn't blow my top at every opportunity. Because in my past iterations, I would have drawn my flaming sword and been screaming at people on the phone and telling them and trying to make demands and being unreasonable.
You say that, but I've never seen you act like this, and I have trouble imagining it.
Ask my spouse sometime about when I tried to cancel our cable bill. Like
you did tell that story on the podcast.
So this is a thing that I used to do in the past, and this is the first time where I really felt like I made a deliberate decision every time to quash the frustration, push down the anger that I felt at the situation, and not plead, but like level with everyone. Like, listen, I'm in a tough spot, and you're the person that I'm supposed to call to help me. What do I need to do? How do we fix this? We're a team. Like I did the you get more flies with honey than poop thing.
Yeah, and well done.
I feel like maybe it worked a little bit, which is unfortunate that I'm 38 and just now learning this lesson.
Well, that was a great tip. Good Josh versus bureaucracy segment. Well done.
Ugh, I feel dirty.
All right, I got another follow-up besides your car, and that is back in episode 56, I told a story about how there was a nuclear physicist that came here from Sandia National Labs and told us about the updates they're making to our nuclear weapons.
Yes, and you were the fly in the punch bowl asking, do we really need all this nuclear?
Yeah, exactly. So the senior ranking officer in this class was my senior raider, the one-star general who's the director of operations for Air Force Global Strike Command. And he poked me in the chest about the fact that I was speaking up for nuclear disarmament because he's in charge of 2 of the 3 legs of the nuclear triad. So I figured for one, he'd remember me after that. Anyway, this week we're on what the military calls very evasively minimum manning, which is, we all know there's not a lot of work going to be done. So if we all just come to a mutual agreement, as long as somebody's in the office, to answer the phone if something breaks out and wake everybody up and bring them in, that's great. You don't need to be on leave. You can just be at home with your family for a period of about 2 weeks.
Glorious.
So I was on minimum manning, and about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a text message from my colonel, and she says, can you come in at 8 a.m. tomorrow and brief the general on this project that you've been working on? And
new phone, who dis?
So I didn't have that at all. Like, I had been working really hard on this thing. I was really ready to talk about it, and I was excited that I was going to get my chance on a day when it wasn't busy and there weren't other things going on, and I'd actually just have some time to talk about it.
That's cool.
It was that project that I think everyone gets at some point in your life where you get someplace new and you're trying to figure out how everything works, and something falls in your lap that just feels like, this is a thing I can do really well at. Like, I don't know about all that other stuff that's going on. I'll try to figure all that out. But this thing, I know what this is. I know how to make it be successful. This will be my baby. And that's what this was for me. There's this project to provide, it's just a complex IT acquisition in the military. And those are hard for a lot of reasons. There's accreditation and testing approvals. There's security problems. There's budget. There's sustainment tail. There's a whole bunch of things in the way. So as soon as I realized that this thing had been orphaned by the previous organizational changes, I adopted it. It wasn't mine. It didn't belong to me, but I could see no one owned it. And so I was going to adopt it. And I started finding out who all the stakeholders were, who all the players were, where the money was going to come from, where all the process was, what the next steps were. And I built what's called a COA brief, course of action brief for a senior decision maker to make. But there were still a few things that need to happen in order for it to be successful that I was waiting on. But in the meantime, I'd assembled all this information into one 28-slide PowerPoint brief with graphics and backup information, all that kind of stuff. So when I get a text at 4 in the afternoon from my colonel that says, can you brief the general at 8 tomorrow morning? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready.
Do I have to shave? Is it by Zoom? Do I have to put pants on?
I did go and shave immediately after that text. So that morning I get up, the colonel's there. She's like, you ready? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. So I hand her a copy of the slides and we went over to the general's office. And it's that minimum manning atmosphere. Like, nobody's breathing down his neck. There's not a lot going on. He's joking with us, brings us into his office. And the other people are, I don't know, getting a cup of coffee or something. It was just me in there. And I look at him and I said, sir, I haven't seen you since we took that class together a few weeks ago. He's like, what class do you mean? I was like,
why would you be the one to broach the subject? Hey, remember me? I'm the guy you hate.
I wanted to see if he remembered that, and he didn't.
Well, why? Why? Then why would you ask him at the beginning of this presentation instead of the end?
Okay, so Josh, talk for a minute about the dilemma of having a senior rater who is like the person that decides your fate and getting what they call FaceTime.
This is the thing is, so I never got to a point where I had to start caring a lot about my senior rater. I never liked playing that political game when I was in the military, but this is the guy who's the last signature line on your OPR, on your performance report. And the way that it works in the military is for higher ranks, people that like where there's only a certain number of slots and the people that don't get it, they get axed. Those have to go to a room at some point and get racked and stacked. And theoretically, in an ideal world, they're all weighed on merit alone. But in the real world, all of these generals pull strings and call other generals and play favorites.
They help who they know.
It's like a Major League Baseball draft almost, where they talk about who's going to get what job and what promotions and who's going to be where in 10 years, and it's ridiculously political.
Yeah. Now, also, a senior rater could have as many as like 100 people whose reports he's signing that all compete against each other. And when it comes time for him to rack and stack them and make recommendations for who are the top people, he's gonna promote the ones he knows. Now, everyone below him knows this, and they may seek out deliberate opportunities to get in front of him. Yes, suck up. We can call it that. To suck up so that he sees them and knows who they are, so that then when their paperwork comes across his desk, he goes, oh, I know this guy. Fill in the blank with, a personal evaluation.
Oh, I know this guy. This is the guy that hates nuclear armament.
Right. Exactly. So, and I'm okay with that if that's all he remembered about me. I just wanted to see if he remembered it, which he didn't. Anyway, FaceTime is usually something, particularly for comm officers, if they're under like an operational officer who has an operational mission, we're kind of in the background. Like if you pick up the phone and it has a dial tone, you're not like, oh, thank comm, I have a great service today. No, you only see them if there's a crisis. And so you could go a full year and never actually make FaceTime through the natural course of events with your senior rater. However, this was the golden opportunity. This was, he wants me to come teach him about something that I'm the expert on.
Oh, you used that word teach, and we established like that you are like a hardcore teaching guy. Like you didn't go too whole hog on that, did you?
I totally did, Josh. His exact words in the email trail I saw were, who can come help me get smart on this?
Oh, so they were looking for like a teacher type.
He wanted me.
Sir, here is a blank piece of paper and some crayons. Now I'm going to take you on a journey. Hold my hand, and together we will be better on the other end of this briefing.
Exactly. So I sat down, I handed him my slides, and I started telling the story. And he was enraptured.
Ben, you're briefing the general about computer nonsense that he didn't know about. He was not enraptured.
He only interrupted me to ask legitimate on-topic questions, and then he would stop and go, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so he was paying attention. That's different than enraptured. Like, was he on the edge of his seat with like a tear in his eye and just like a smile on his lips? Yes, he was.
I'm telling you, Josh, he was on the edge of his seat with a tear in his eye. And it came from background. He used to be a wing commander, and he used to fight for capabilities like this. And so it wasn't just like I was trying to convince him that he needed the thing I was working on. It was that he was already convinced he needed the thing I was working on, and he needed somebody to adopt it, and he could see that I was his guy.
So he realized that there was a thing that he didn't know that he needed, but needed. Like there was AirPods. He finally discovered. Someone told him he needed AirPods, and he realized, I do need AirPods. And then in walks Major Ben Rich. It's like, sir, I've been working on AirPods for 6 months. Unbeknownst to you, here's my plan so far.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Well, good. I'm glad it went well. So now you're back to neutral. He doesn't just hate you. You're like, oh, that's that guy that hates his job, but is
after I reminded him that what he'd forgotten. Yes.
Yeah, good job. Way to be that guy.
So that was a follow-up on that. I had a successful vacation week briefing to the general. Now I got my FaceTime.
So this means that your retirement is canceled? Obviously, you're going to get promoted to lieutenant colonel now? Like no, your whole life is
not
going
to get promoted. I don't know what this means. What was it? Gosh, I'm thinking of some intellectual property, some movie or something where the protagonist kind of fell out of favor. Oh, it was that movie with Nick Cage. It was a Christmas movie. Do you remember the one? It was called Family Man. Have you seen that one?
It was a long time ago, but I know what you're
It's a modern rendition of It's a Wonderful Life, where he's like this fast-talking Wall Street banker with a Ferrari and a different chick every night, and wearing high-end suits and fancy watches and just swinging and stuff. But one evening he gets melancholy and reminisces about the time when he broke up with his girlfriend that he was thinking about proposing to, and their lives split and made different choices. And then he runs into Clarence. I don't remember his name. It's the Clarence of this story. And he waves the wand and he wakes up back in that day, and instead of having gone separate ways, they got married. And now he's inherited the married life. They've got 3 kids. He has a low-end job. They live in a crappy house. And at first it just seems chaotic and he feels put upon. And his initial reaction is to try to get back to his high-speed Wall Street job. And he's able to pull it off almost, in that he has enough insider knowledge and still has the skill set and stuff. And then he has to weigh the opportunity of getting back on the fast track, promotions and riches and wealth and all that stuff versus what he traded it for. Now, I'm using if audience, if you've seen this movie, I'm telling you this is kind of happening to me, even though it's not magic, in my life. Like, every now and then somebody dangles this in front of me, like, hey, if you just volunteer to be the exec and run the holiday party committee and come in early every week and work on this thing for the general, maybe we could get you back on the track and you could get promoted to lieutenant colonel and you could get a command tour and your career could continue for another 10 years.
Yeah, you say that, but nobody can promise you that.
He has something. He has a tool that no one's used yet, and that is a definitely promote on my promotion recommendation form. That is available to him.
Yeah, but honestly, you're talking like, even that I don't think is a 100% guarantee that everything's going to work out now. So now what you're talking about is killing yourself in your job, potentially, in all of these other roundabout ways, like coming in early and doing these very terrible jobs for the possibility of getting the DP. Not even the guarantee, but the possibility of getting the DP. And then maybe with the DP you get picked up for after the fact lieutenant colonel.
Yeah.
Like that's
Okay, but here's the thing, and here's why I brought up the movie and why I can relate to this, is he has this moment where he sees what looks like the glorious thing that he wanted, but then he starts to realize the thing that he has that he traded it for. And it's a beautiful wife who loves him dearly, and children who he has a relationship with because he's been there. And those are the things I traded. There's some coincidence and some timing and things related to just what year I was born and socio-political events and those kinds of things that were just beyond my control that I think factor into this. But ultimately, I don't regret the things I traded for where I'm at right now.
Well, good. I'm glad. Now, on your tangent, talking about the Nicolas Cage movie, I do have to mention, because I just love to be the fly in your ointment. From anybody else's perspective other than Nicolas Cage in that movie, it just seems like Nicolas Cage had a psychotic break. Like, he had this wonderful family and everything was going great, and then he woke up one morning a complete psychopath.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to them.
Yeah,
you should watch it. I recommend it. Family Man. It's a Christmas movie.
Oh, it's a Christmas movie. Then, he gets all the passes. Like, forget it. It's fine. It doesn't have to be good. We'll just watch the Christmas movie.
No, it's a good one. It's a modern take on It's a Wonderful Life. Anyway, that was my brief to the Brigadier General.
Well, I'm glad that it went well, and I'm glad that you, ensorcelled or enraptured your senior raider with a briefing about computer stuff during the Christmas downtime.
What I did bring out of the thing is his commitment and a promise from him that I would get funding when the time came. Josh, I sent you a couple of weeks ago one of those online quizzes that you take and it was to kind of do like the D&D moral alignment, where on the x-axis you have your lawfulness, and on the y-axis you have good versus evil. And you wanted to talk about this, so what'd you have?
I did want to talk about this for no other reason than I just wanted to brag about how I landed on this chart, because I'm answering these questions, and obviously, I mean, it is a 9x9 grid. It was 24 questions, so what kind of granularity are you really getting? But at the same...
it wasn't just 24 questions. You answered each one with a slider.
Okay, that's true. So there was some weighted scores going on, and
right.
You could kind of, never mind. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to break down the mechanics of it. The idea is that I was taking the quiz with the full expectation of being lawful good coming out the end of it, because...
Really?
Well, because I'm a lawful person, and I try to be good. But I was delightfully surprised to end up with a score of lawful evil.
Okay.
Which is so wonderful. That just tickled me just so, perfectly. This is a great result. I love this.
So, but it gives each quadrant a grid, and you weren't, way in the corner. You weren't at, the far end of it.
No.
Just across the line.
I was way more lawful than I was evil. I was, barely, dipping my toes into the evil section, and I was, halfway into lawful. Now, for everybody that's listening to my voice and doesn't understand what we're talking about, when we say lawful, the other end of the spectrum is chaotic, and that just means, do you follow rules or do you do whatever you want? And then good versus evil isn't the classic, saving orphans from a burning building or being the guy who set the building on fire.
Those were good dichotomies.
The good end of the spectrum is, are you more worried about the world? Are you more empathetic about others? Versus evil being, are you very self-centered and only care about your number one?
Okay, so then talk about this intersection. What does it mean to be lawful evil?
So lawful evil is you are hardcore about rules, and you have a strict code, but being the evil, that just means you don't care about anybody else. So
I'll read you what it said on the quiz.
Okay.
Lawful evil believe structure and organization elevate those who deserve to rule. They prefer a clearly defined hierarchy. If someone is hurt or suffers because of a law that benefits the lawful evil person, well, that is just too bad for them. People who are lawful evil obey laws out of fear of punishment or because they take pride in participating in the political body that spawned those laws. Because they are lawful, they tend to honor contracts and oaths they have made. But on the other hand, because they're evil, they tend to be very careful about giving their word. A thing I'd like to add about this, I think, is someone who's in the lawful evil quadrant sees the laws as a way of getting what they want.
Yes. Now, whenever I run a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, I always describe lawful evil as a person where just because you're lawful doesn't mean you're following the law. The law that you're following as a lawful evil person can be your own laws. They can be your code, your ethics. You have a strict set that you follow all the time, but it doesn't necessarily have to align with anybody else's idea of what's good. Yeah,
I hear this when you talk about queuing behavior. Standing in lines. You feel like that law is immutable, and you see it as something as long as everyone follows the first come first serve line behavior, that benefits me the most.
I don't know if it benefits me the most, but it's what I see as the most fair. People have tried to come up with multiple queuing systems where, the fast food thing, you have a big order and the person behind you has a small order, so he should get to go first. Who says that Jack in his car behind me, just because he wants a cheeseburger, gets his food before me? I got here first. Jack should have left his house 10 minutes earlier.
It's like that at the medical clinic or the DMV where you have a computerized check-in system, and it gives you a waiting number that starts with a letter and then a number. And you can tell that the letter queues designate the faster ones.
Well, all right, guys, so you're talking about differences in kind here. Because at the DMV, there are different services that you're asking for, and only certain people can do those services. So you're actually in different queues. And when you're talking about medical treatment, okay, there's more on the line there. Just because I got here first doesn't mean that I should necessarily go first. Excuse me, ma'am, I am very near death. Can I go in front of you? No, my elbow feels funny. That shouldn't be a thing either. Yeah. But when we're talking about low-stakes stuff like the fast food line, I should get my food first.
Okay, so as expected, I took this moral alignment test, and I'll post a link to it in the show notes. And I came out lawful good. However, I came out really close to the line on neutral in the lawful chaotic spectrum. There's a lot of questions where it's do you always follow the rules? I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, not always. Yeah, I get what you're saying. So, and that's That's the thing. Like, you're solidly good. You're a good person. But, like, sometimes you feel like the laws aren't necessarily where you should be in order to get your good mission done.
So I checked out our scores, and there's something interesting. You got 39.2% evil, and they reversed the evil good ratings when they put you on the bottom half of the spectrum. I'm only 16 points more than you.
16 points more good than me?
Yes.
So our absolute value of goodness is only 16. So I'm more closer to the neutral zone, is what you're saying.
Yes. However, I am 16 points below you on the lawful spectrum.
Oh, so it's like a diagonal shift almost.
Yes.
I don't know what we're going to draw from that, like what weird mathematical thing we can do. I think it probably has something to do with the fact that there were 24 questions and 16 is a thing.
Well, audience, weigh in. Go ahead and take the quiz. You can check it out on our Facebook page or in the show notes and let us know what you are. I'm interested to know if we've got any true neutrals out there, or I don't know.
True neutrals are people
green goblins that listen to the podcast.
Green goblins, yes. No, true neutral people you never want to go anywhere with, because if you hate the words, if you ask somebody, where do you want to go eat? And you hate the words, oh, I don't care. That's the true neutral person right there.
Yeah. If they really don't care and they're not just saying that. But we talked about that on something else that we'll mention later.
Excellent.
Josh, it's time for Bad at Parenting. But before I talk about how I was bad at parenting this week, I want to talk about a pseudo win of sorts that really doesn't have anything to do with my parenting. So every year in the military, they tend to have the military equivalent of like work holiday parties. I assume you had one at your work.
Kind of. We're only 4 people in a tiny little accounting firm, so we all went out to eat.
Right, but your boss probably says, let's go out together.
Yeah, we went out to eat.
Okay. Yeah, so in the military, they'll either do like a formal ball kind of thing where everybody gets together and like they rent out a hotel ballroom and there's a committee that plans and decorates and everybody dresses up and stuff like that. But this year, I think because the remnants of COVID, they kind of combined 2 past traditions. And one is like a holiday potluck where on a certain day, everybody brings in some food and you all have like a Thanksgiving-style lunch together with the evening party. So families are invited. There was a bounce house and movies for the kids, and there was a big potluck. And it was the squadron party kind of thing, but because I'm on the staff at Headquarters Air Force Global Strike Command, it was our directorate, which is roughly 200 people-ish. So a pretty respectable potluck. There's a committee who gets local sponsorships and uses the funds they've raised throughout the year to get prizes that they then hand out like raffle tickets for, and then everybody gets the prizes. In the past, I don't know if it's the fact that I'm just bringing so many people with me to the party, but I felt like we've gotten a disproportionately high number of the prizes. So when I came through the door and they offered me the raffle tickets, I declined.
Oh, interesting. So just this time or all the time?
It's kind of my policy going forward. It just makes me uncomfortable, particularly in squadrons where there's only like, a handful of officers and a bunch of enlisted. And then the officers win all the prizes and everyone just kind of, they clap, but they're scowling at you.
Okay. I mean, I don't see any problem winning a random drawing and taking home prizes.
Yeah, I get that. That's a very lawful evil answer.
I cannot argue. Yes, you're right. That is a very lawful evil answer.
But I'd prefer to just not win, like rather than win and say, that's what happens. It's random, like not my fault.
As long as you don't do like a moonwalk up to the stage, I think it's fine.
do the meme of the guy who got the bronze medal.
Yes.
Shake a bottle of champagne.
Spray all over yourself. Yes, I love that meme.
Okay, so I didn't take any tickets, but I let my kids do it. And the way they were doing this particular one is they had all the prizes lined up in the front, and they hand you 5 tickets when you come in, and you go up and look at the prizes, and they had a little bowl next to each one where you put your ticket in. So the most popular prizes were getting a lot of tickets, and you could kind of go, oh, no one put any tickets in this prize over here. I'll put my tickets there, and I'm more likely to win. Or I really want this one, I'll put my tickets in it anyway. And they had everything, from like gift baskets with like expensive alcohol in it, to movie tickets, to gift certificates to restaurants, to physical prizes, tool sets and stuff like that. Anyway, my kids put it all in and we sat down, and then they started the potluck. A military potluck, interestingly, there's not a lot of home cooking. going down. It's a lot of just like pick something up at the commissary after work. I don't know what that says about us as a people, but
5 people brought buckets of fried chicken. Great, thanks, guys.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. So anyway, nice meal, nice people, interesting entertainment and music and stuff going on. Then they start the main event. They start reading off the numbers for the raffle, and they're going through the prizes. And they get to a pair of the newest generation of Apple AirPods. And my daughter goes, I put all my tickets in that basket. Sure enough, they read off her number. She gets the $200 AirPods. Then they are like, all right, look under your seats. We put gift certificates. We look under our seats. There's one of the gift certificates for I don't know, $5 to Buffalo Wild Wings or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And then they get to the very last prize, and it's a mini fridge, probably retail value about $200. And they read off the number, and sure enough, my son won that. So our tables are, we already gotten the prizes piling up on the table, and they're going up and getting this mini fridge, and I'm mortified. Like, so we come, we brought with us a homemade pecan pie, and then we leave with $400 in electronics and furniture, and a $5 gift certificate to Buffalo Wild Wings, and gosh, man, so my kids notoriously think they're kings of the world. Like I don't know, they just think they win all the time. Like they expect when they put their ticket in that bowl, they're gonna win.
This is just the karmic repayment. This is the universe being like, you know what? We need to do the rich family a solid here.
If that's the case, then I should have gotten every prize on that stage, because the Air Force owes me way more than $400.
Okay. Let's not get crazy. Like, this is the universe. The Air Force doesn't care. But
yeah. So that added to the family lore, because my youngest daughter, she just, whenever she puts her mind to something, she wins. But this is something she doesn't have any control over. So when she sat down and told me she was going to win the AirPods, I'm like, listen, honey, it's just random. You saw there was like 100 tickets in that bowl. You're probably not going to win.
How old is your youngest daughter?
She's 12.
Have you considered the possibility that she is magic? Like, can she see the future?
Maybe.
Is she the first X-Man?
Luck is not a superpower.
Luck is don't get me started. Luck is totally a superpower.
I was making a Deadpool joke. Domino is. Oh, right, thank you. That's exactly where I was going to go with that. Okay,
we can still be friends.
Luck is not a superpower.
Luck is totally a superpower.
Okay. So that brings me to the fail. The week before last, there was a guy that came up to me in church, and he says, hey, we have a football stadium here in town. Every year they host one of the college football bowl games. And usually the military gives out free tickets, and if they get some, would you mind picking some up for me? I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't even know that. I was like, yeah. So I got on my phone and I Googled it, and not only was the bowl happening in town, but it was my alma mater had won their conference or whatever, and it qualified, and they were going to be playing in Shreveport, Louisiana.
BYU played in your hometown.
Yeah, the Brigham Young University Cougars that I went to every single home game for 4 years at in Provo, Utah, was coming to Shreveport, Louisiana. I was like, heck yeah, I'm on board. So I bought, and my son and his wife were going to be in town, so I bought 10 tickets, and I thought, what a great activity. It'll be the highlight of the week. We'll take everybody, go down to the bowl, have some food, and cheer for the Cougars and watch them win, because they've had a great season. They were like 10-2. They're ranked 12th in the nation. They got matched up against the Blaze, the Dragons from the University of Alabama, Birmingham. Who are they? And so we're totally gonna win.
Apologies to all the Alabama listeners. Ben didn't mean it. It's totally fine.
But this is not the other popular Alabama teams. It's not Auburn, and this is not the big red A Crimson Tide Alabama. This is like, who are these guys? So they match up, and all week it's been like 77 degrees and sunny. Day of the game, wake up in the morning, thunderstorm and lightning, just pouring down rain. Temperature drops like 30 degrees. So it's like 50 degrees and pouring rain.
Oh, it's perfect football game weather.
Yeah, and I keep looking at the forecast, and it's just like, oh, it'll stop right when the game time. It'll stop an hour after the game starts. It'll rain all the way through the game. It's like, oh, crap. So we kind of got together our stuff, but there's all the weird COVID things, and they're not allowing you to bring bags, and we just didn't scare up enough like wet weather gear, and we went to the game. Now, I made a false assumption. I don't know why I made this assumption. Maybe you've made this in other areas in your life. It's like there's a thing that you loved as a child and you never stopped to consider why you loved it, and you think your children will love it too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know if I've done that yet, but I'm sure I have.
Yeah. So I loved football, but I didn't think about all of the things that contributed to me loving football. It was growing up and watching, college football on Saturdays and being a fan of the NFL and then going to the university and stuff like that. And all that was ingrained in me. My kids grew up in Europe. They don't even know how American football works.
Oh, your kids are freaking foreigners. Oh.
We don't have broadcast television. They've never watched an American football game. So when we got there, we were just primed for disaster. It's pouring rain. It's freezing cold. They don't know what the heck's going on. The stadium's half empty. The coolest part was the band who was rocking it. And then the Dragons go up by 2 touchdowns and we're chasing them the whole game. We get to halftime and the stadium's emptying out and my kids are done.
Capital D, done. Did you bring all the kids?
Yeah, I brought everybody. And I just felt like a failure.
How many vehicles did you bring?
2.
Okay, so then everybody gets to leave except you.
Yeah, so we had the stalwarts that stuck it out. My daughter-in-law, who had never been to a game before and just had this very stalwart determination to consume this cultural experience in its entirety.
Or a very stalwart commitment to making a good impression on her father-in-law.
I don't think that was the case. I just heard her justification. It was, I have never been able to do this kind of thing in my life before. I'm here and have the opportunity to do it, and I want to see it through to the end.
Good or bad.
Yeah.
Even if staying till the end makes the entire experience worse.
Yeah, I want to see it through. Her husband stoically gave up his rain poncho to her, and he'd worn shorts. He was soaked to the bone and freezing cold. So by the time halftime rolled around, my wife and my eldest son, who'd stayed, everybody else left, went out to the car, and my daughter-in-law and me and my friend from church stayed and watched the end of the game. We went ahead with about 6 minutes to go, and then they scored a touchdown, and we lost 31-28.
Oh, this is a fail across the board.
Oh, man.
Just bad weather, just nobody wanted to be there.
I assumed that they would like football, and I was just so wrong. It was terrible.
Well, I do the same thing when it comes to sporting events, but I don't have the same assumptions that I guess you went into this. Like, if you drag your family to an arena like that, and I'm assuming they were bleachers, just no backs.
Yeah, it was just cold aluminum bleachers soaking wet.
Yeah, and if you don't know what's going on, if you've never seen an American football game, it's going to be tough to learn and appreciate the nuance in the moment when it's freezing cold outside. This is you need absolute perfect weather and a lot of snacks to get a newbie through a football game.
That's what I think. And if it had been nice weather that day, they'd have all stuck around, but I still don't think they'd have walked away, college football fans.
So I've taken my kids to a couple of different flavors of sporting events, and they always walk away with a good taste in their mouth for it. And my son always asks, when can we go back to watch the Diamondbacks play baseball?
Nice.
And here's the thing, though. It's not because he cares about the game at all. Not even one iota. It's because the entire time that they're sitting there in seats, this is important, get real seats for kids. They sit down and they feel like they're a grown-up in a real seat. I'm stuffing their faces with food the entire time. It's you guys want cotton candy? Yeah, let's fly down the cotton candy guy. Oh, you want the snow cones? No problem. He's right over there. Come here, snow cone guy. Give my kids. So in their minds, they get to go to this place where it's loud and they get to scream for no reason at random times. And I stuff their face full of sugar. So eventually I'll start introducing the fact that, hey, by the way, did you know that there's a game that's happening while you're here?
Yeah. I screamed until I lost my voice, and it reminded me why I loved that so much, why I went to every home game while I was in college.
Really?
You went involuntarily. You had a completely different experience than I did in college.
Let's not go there just yet. I want to ask. I want to make this joke real quick. I just always assumed that the BYU students, whenever you scored a touchdown, would just politely clap and then apologize for being better than the other team.
No, we embarrass ourselves sometimes, particularly in our known Holy War rivalry with the Cross-State University of Utah Utes, who are considered to be the Gentiles, and we're the church school, and they antagonize us, and it really gets embarrassing. We beat them this year on our way to our 12th national ranking, which we lost after we lost that bowl game.
Yeah, no, I went to every football game as well when I was in college. It was involuntary. I had no interest in football at the time, especially not college football for a school that wasn't very good at football. And most of the time it was miserable. There was one game where it was forecasted to be in the negative 30s, and they actually...
Holy crap.
They invented a new uniform combination an hour before the game because they knew it was going to be so cold that they just stacked every layer of warm clothing.
Yeah, because the cadets always have to wear your service dress, right? Your blue uniform.
We were supposed to all the time to the football games. That football game, the uniform was on the outside. As long as you're wearing combat boots, BDU pants, and then our parka on the outside. They didn't care what was underneath. Ben, I literally wore long underwear, a sweatsuit, then a jogging suit, then my BDU pants and my overcoat. And I was still freezing cold the entire time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a like health hazard. Did they let you guys leave early?
No, absolutely not. We stayed there until the game was over. They had warming tents for like the people that did come to the game, which some people showed up but then immediately left because it was freezing cold and we were losing because we always lost. And they kicked all of us out of the warming tents at halftime. Like, this is ridiculous. Get up in the stands and cheer for the team. This is not why you're here. And we're like, we are freezing to death. Please let us stay in these tents where it is warm. And they don't care.
Now, I remember the Academy usually, getting 500 or better most seasons.
They probably did. I tried actively not to pay attention. I have a very, very sour taste in my mouth for the athletic types at the Academy. When I was a freshman, my roommate was a recruited football player who made my life objectively worse at every possible turn. No fault of his own. I'm sure he's a great guy. Just his existence made my life worse. Also, the fact that there's a lot of like ridiculous standards that I had to meet in order to be there. But the football teams, the people that they recruit, don't have to meet half of those standards. And then they over-recruit knowing that they're going to cut half of the people that they recruited. And so then you have like 100 people in the academy that, one, may or may not really want to be there. And two, didn't meet all of the same standards or criteria that I did. And three, are taking a slot of somebody who actually wanted to be there.
All right, listeners, let it be known that Josh tried to warn me that I was wandering into the garden of repressed memories.
Oh, man. Like, every time you start mentioning the academy, I hear, like, the helicopter noises and the flashbacks start. Like, it's no good.
Okay, it is time for Bad at Logic. And because it's episode 62, I will select a logical fallacy.
It's an even episode,
So I'm getting out my critical thinking cards here. And today's fallacy is special pleading.
I really like special pleading, Ben. I really do.
Okay, special pleading is moving the goalpost to create exceptions when a claim is shown to be false.
Everyone on the planet Earth has done this because this is the logical fallacy of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It's like, I hate getting cut off in traffic. You just cut that guy off in traffic. Oh, well, but I'm in a hurry and I've got to get someplace. So it's okay for me to do it in this exact instance, but it's never okay for anybody else to do it to me.
Yeah, and it's also like, I have an opinion. I'll show you that it's true. Oh, that didn't work out. Well, let's try again or change the parameters of the discussion.
Oh, one of the latest ones that I've been super enjoying pointing this out to people. A lot of people are complaining that right now in America, the workforce, it's impossible to hire like anybody for service jobs. Like,
really?
Look around. Fast food restaurants are desperate for
people.
It
has been abysmal recently.
There's a lot. Just there's for hire jobs available signs everywhere. And
we've tried nothing, and we're all out of ideas. How about raise wages? That'll get people.
Oh, listen, you freaking communist! Stop it with your crazy ideas over there. No, but what was great is that everybody. I always hear complaints. I live in a red state, so I have a lot of red state people that I interact with, and people are like, "Oh, it's all these dang millennials," not realizing
that don't want to work,
are my age, but like it's all these dang millennials just staying at home, getting paid that extra unemployment from the government. Like, they get paid more sitting home than they do going to work. One, okay, there was a boost to federal unemployment that dried up like halfway through 2020. And two, I read this great article from the Department of Labor that pointed out it was the third quarter of 2021, 90% of the people that left the workforce were baby boomers who decided to retire because there are incentives for them to do so.
Okay, so how would special pleading factor into this? You're having this discussion with somebody, they point to this straw man of millennials that don't want to work, and it's actually baby boomers, so then what?
Well, it's actually most of the people leaving the workforce are baby boomers. It's like, oh, well, maybe in the whole big picture, but me, in my situation, I can't hire anybody, and it's definitely because of this unemployment thing.
Yeah, special pleading. All right, well, we've added that to our vocabulary now.
Hooray!
For Bad at English, I want to tell a story about the kind of cultural experience you have when you go to the United Kingdom. Our first Christmas there, I had an experience where we had an office Christmas party, and I don't. Maybe you've seen this, maybe you've been exposed to it, but when you go to any type of Christmas gathering in the UK. And apparently any of Commonwealth countries, when you go there, you'll have a place setting, and on it will be something they call a Christmas cracker. Do you know what a Christmas cracker is?
I do. It's a little paper thing. It's twisted at both ends, and you crack it open, and there's confetti or stuff, and then there's usually a hat inside too.
Yeah, and they misuse the word cracker, but what cracker means in this context is there's a little, usually explosive charge, similar to those little pop snaps that you get on the 4th of July, that when you pull on the ends of it inside, it pops and makes a cracking sound.
This is hilarious because I don't know if you've told us about this before. I feel like you have, because we were watching, it's Christmas time, and this is the Fleshman household. So we watched...
yes. We have talked about this on the podcast.
We watched Arthur Christmas. And there is a scene towards the beginning of the movie where they're sitting around for dinner, and Arthur does a Christmas cracker, and he pops it open, and there's confetti, and he pulls his little crown out and puts it on. And my son goes, "What's that?" And I paused the movie. We've seen it 100 times anyway. And I was like, that is a Christmas cracker. It is a very traditional thing in the United Kingdom.
I know about that because we talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah, and I just felt very in the moment, haha, I can answer a ridiculous question that my son has, and it always makes me feel good.
Festive table decorations that make a snapping sound when pulled open often contain a small gift, paper crown, and a joke. So this is really fun when we go out for our office Christmas gathering. Usually one of the ladies in the office or me or somebody would make a reservation at a restaurant, and they would have a traditional menu of British Christmas roast or whatever. And then when you get there would be these on the table. And the way you do it in a group apparently is everyone picks theirs up at once, and you cross arms, and you hold the person to your right and the person to your left. You each hold a Christmas cracker, and you pull them all at once so they all make a popping sound. And then you open them up, and there's a little paper crown inside. You put it on. You take turns reading the joke. You get the cute little toy. This is all not even to the level of McDonald's Happy Meal toy kind of stuff
right.
inside of this thing. But it just adds a little bit of fun and festivity to the gatherings. And so every year we were there, my family would buy some of these, and we would open them together. But I think... when we left in the summer, we bought some and we kept them and opened them the first year we were back, but we haven't had them since. But I know if we ever have them again in the future, it will make us reminisce of the good times back in the old kingdom.
This feels like something you can get on Amazon in a pack of 1,000 for $20.
Yeah. I'm sure. If we put some effort, maybe I'll do it next year. It's too late this year.
Can I put a plug in for the best Christmas joke that I've heard this season? While we're talking about jokes on the Christmas crackers.
Do it.
My son told me this joke yesterday, and
awesome.
These are the best jokes, and I'm adopting it. And thanks, Carter, for this joke. It's mine now. Okay, so why does Santa Claus only come once a year?
I don't know, Carter. Why does Santa Claus only come once a year?
Because he spends the rest of the year in jail for breaking and entering.
Awesome. Well, Josh, when we were talking about holiday traditions, you kind of mentioned offhandedly the Christmas anthem, "All I Want for Christmas Is You" by Mariah Carey. I know when you brought it up. You brought it up because maybe it wasn't you, but somebody pointed out to me that that the math of this is a problem. Oh, it was a guy at work. He pointed out that the math of this is a problem. You're like, oh, so you're just saying that person isn't worth very much. I'm like, no, it's saying the opposite. Okay. I want to talk about this song for a minute, Josh.
Why, Ben? We hear the song 40 million times, and I feel like it starts in October.
Okay. Are you familiar with the confession bear meme?
The confession bear meme. No, I don't think I am.
It's like a bear. It's a photo or a close-up of a bear's face, and he's kind of tilting his head to the side, and he looks like he's confessing something to you.
I've not seen it, no.
Oh, okay. Usually, in impact font on the top and bottom, he's saying something that's really unpopular that you wouldn't want to say. You want to say anonymously, and so you would put it on there. Here's my confession bear meme. All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey is my favorite Christmas song.
Your favorite? Like Ben Rich's favorite Christmas song?
Oh, love it.
Okay, now let's be clear. There's two things. One, there's not a whole lot of Christmas songs that exist, and I know this because we listened to nothing but Christmas songs all season, and they loop a lot. And second, I have a band to introduce to you after this podcast is over called Straight No Chaser that has at least two Christmas songs three. They have three Christmas songs that I love beyond any other Christmas song I've ever heard.
Wow. All right, well, you better get your best one ready because I'm kind of hard to impress in this arena. And this song is an example why. So this came out on Mariah Carey's fourth studio album in 1994. She did what all good celebrities do when they're peaking in popularity and released a Christmas album to cash in.
That's what all celebrities do at some point.
That's right. And she came from a very traditional background with lots of gospel songs, and most of the album is those. But she had a handful of original songs that she put on there. In fact, she said, for the most part, people really want to hear the standards at Christmas time, no matter how good a new song is. And yet, she created what would become the best-selling holiday single of all time.
I don't like. How much are you going to talk about this song?
This is an epic song, Josh. It deserves an epic segment on the Bad at Magic podcast.
You're dodging my question, and you're getting more excited about the content. I'm not liking where this is going.
It starts off with that beautiful a cappella preamble that's almost like it's preparing you for how excellent this song is going to be.
Oh, Lord, he's doing his video essay voice. Listeners, buckle in.
And then it kicks in with the sleigh bells and goes up to 150 beats a minute and just carries you through to the home. All she wants for Christmas is you. Who is you? In the vein of classic rock songs ever, it's vague enough that it can mean anything. It could be your loved, it could be your mother, it could be your girlfriend, it could be the baby Jesus. It could be anything.
Oh, wow. Good work. I love how you tied it up. You really did hit the entire spectrum there. That's solid.
And it has Carey's famously prodigious vocal range, and she goes for some really high notes in this song and has one of the cleanest performances of her career. The song has like 13 chords in it, which just gives this sumptuous chromatic melody. And it is perfect. This old school 60s sounding rock boogie, but with a holiday flavor, church bells, sleigh bells, chorus, electronic instruments. It's the best. If you want to watch a video of it, watch the original. There's two versions from 1994. One's kind of like old-timey camcorder-y mock-up. The other one's in black and white. Do not watch the 25th anniversary one she did with Justin Bieber. That one's creepy.
Well, Justin Bieber's in it, so of course it's creepy.
Well, but like he's just, he might not even be 18 yet. I can't remember. But she's all busting out in like this sexy Santa costume, and it's creepy.
So, all right, so I'm gonna ask a tangential question to your topic here. Like, you mentioned earlier, like big pop stars, they always release these like Christmas albums or Christmas songs to try to cash in or whatever. I was having this discussion with my wife. At what point in your career as a performing artist do you do a Christmas album? And I am of the personal opinion that this is something you do on the downward slope. Like you realize you're on your way out and you just got to get that cash money before you're completely irrelevant.
Now, I don't know offhand. I know Mariah Carey is one of the top performing artists of all time, and I think she's had like 10 best-selling albums, and if this was her fourth, then that means she was definitely not on trend.
Right. So this is a single, though. She didn't do a Christmas. Did she do a whole...
No, this was a single on her fourth studio album, right, which was her Christmas album.
Oh, it was a whole Christmas album. Yeah.
Yes, there were 3 original songs on the album. The rest were covers of traditional Christmas classics.
So are we going to say this was on her upward trajectory? Did All I Want for Christmas to You make
I think
her
she
career?
defied the trend, because I think you're probably right.
Okay.
I don't know. I've known artists that do, like you said, that are like just trying to cash in at the end of their popularity when they're not producing any new music. They don't want to just, they can't, they're original recording artists, and the only thing you can get away with coming out with an entire album of covers is Christmas songs.
Yeah, because like Mariah Carey said, nobody wants to hear new Christmas songs.
Right. But somehow, her and one other guy sat down in a studio in 1994 when I was 17 years old and succeeded in coming up with a new addition to the Christmas canon.
Man, I really want you to listen to a couple of these songs from Straight No Chaser now, because I feel like...
You think they deserve to be part of the Christmas canon?
I think
or are they just good songs?
I think they're... here's the problem, is they're comedy songs. Like, they're funny. There's jokes implicit into them that really tickles me specifically. And
please, I'm a big fan. Like, Grandma got run over by a reindeer. Like, I was all about that when I was a kid.
All right. Do you want to take a break from the podcast and listen to a couple of these songs, and then you can like compare and contrast?
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we're back. I took a look at a couple of Straight No Chaser songs you gave me. And Josh, I feel like I've done you a disservice because I realize we're not talking about the same thing here.
Okay.
I think you were talking about like interesting holiday themed music, and I'm talking about original compositions worthy of being included in the pantheon of standalone Christmas music. So, in order to clarify it a little bit, I'm going to draw upon some of the reviews from good writers of reviews of music. So,
hang on a second. I feel like that is the classiest way of telling me that the music I just made you listen to was terrible and you hated it.
It was fine for an a cappella group and an in-person performance, but it's not something you play on the radio.
Listen, Josh, I'm really sorry to let you know this, but what you just subjected me to was not music. It was a random hodgepodge of nonsense. What I'm talking about
were just
is
mashups of recognized favorites, but there was not an original note in any of those performances.
No, but they were well done. They were entertaining. It was good music. And it was festive to the holiday season. I would rather listen to either of the songs that I just subjected you to rather than All I Want for Christmas Is You one more time.
All right, well, let me finish about telling you why this is the greatest Christmas song ever. Reviewers from publications that review new productions, like back in the 90s, the New Yorker said, this is one of the few worthy modern additions to the holiday canon. The Slate magazine said the only Christmas song written in the last half century worthy of inclusion in the Great American Songbook. That kind of hyperbole we're talking about here. Stylist magazine said to say this song is an instant classic somehow doesn't capture its amazingicity. It's a modern standard, joyous, exhilarating, loud, even with a hint of longing. This song, and here's another way to know it's a classic. This song has been covered by dozens of other major artists in the intervening 27 years. Michael Bublé, My Chemical Romance, Dolly Parton, Shania Twain, Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, Ariana Grande, Kelly Clarkson, the list goes on and on. This is the true definition of a classic.
I mean, it's pretty easy to jump on the Mariah Carey bandwagon. I'm over here putting up the sign for my local indie group, Straight No Chaser. Check them out, people. That's a good scene to be on.
Because of this song, Mariah Carey has been dubbed the Queen of Christmas. This song has never been a number one hit, but it charts every single year higher than the year before. It has made her over $60 million in royalties.
I have seen the meme when it's about the fall time. It's like late October, early November. And there's always the meme that comes out where somebody goes...
You know it's Christmas when.
You know it's Christmas when. And somebody goes to like the Google statistics where you can look at the number of people that are searching for specific phrases, and they type in All I Want for Christmas Is You. And like they show the tiniest uptick from zero, and they circle it and they go, it's started.
So, Mariah, if you're listening, you have the voice of an angel.
Sponsor the podcast.
This is my favorite song of yours. Thank you for making it.
If Mariah Carey wants to sponsor the podcast, how cool would that be?
That would be
This is
awesome.
Ben and Josh with Bad at Magic, brought to you by Mariah Carey. Mariah, we love you forever. Thank you.
All right, Mariah, if you're still listening, we're going to talk about magic now.
Excellent. All right, so you got to gush about Mariah Carey for a bit. Let me gush about interesting phenomena that happen with games and how they change over time. So I don't know if you remember, but there was it was actually quite a few episodes back, but there was an event that Magic the Gathering did, or the Wizards of the Coast did, for Magic the Gathering on their newest client, Magic Arena. And what they did was, just for like a weekend, they had fixed versions of what people consider to be overpowered or banned cards that you could play with just in that event. Do you recall this happening?
Yes.
Okay, we talked about it a bit, and I brought it up specifically because I thought it was an interesting phenomenon, because this was Wizards of the Coast, a business and also a game company, realizing that they have a digital platform where they can make quick iterations on their printed game. And so they took printed cards that were not great, that were broken, that are not allowed to be played in their printed versions, and they fixed them in the digital client and just kind of put their toe in the water and see how people liked that.
And also mimic other online yes. So if what you're pointing out is that when you predicted on the podcast that this was a sign of things to come, you absolutely were correct. I will stand by that. We have recorded evidence that you correctly predicted Magic Arena alchemy.
Whew, I just want to bask in that for a second. There is nothing like the feeling of being right and having recorded evidence that you were right well in advance.
It's pretty
That's
good.
That's pretty good. Anyway, so now what they've released in Magic Arena is called Alchemy, and now it is still a limited thing. It is a smaller subset of the whole game. It's not everything that's happening on Arena is Alchemy. It's just like you have to click in to get to it. But it is perpetual now. It exists all the time, and it has digital-only cards that have mechanics that cannot exist in the physical space because they do weird things like, this card generates another card that you put into your hand from a limited subset of cards that aren't in this set. Stuff like that.
Another thing that I think is digital only that we take for granted is when you're playing a physical card game, when your opponent does something that could remain a secret, but they have to have it not be a secret because you got to make sure they're not cheating.
Yes.
Like, for instance, if they get to search their library for an instant, they have to show you that they got an instant, and then you get the information. But on an online client, it could just search for an instant, and the computer, whatever.
So yeah,
moderates.
Magic Gathering is still good. Like, even on the digital client, if you search for a specific type of card, you do have to reveal it to your opponent. But I'm glad that you brought this up, because there are cards that are digital only that reference or count things in your library. For example, one card does something like, for each creature that you have in your library, and you get some benefit. Now, in order to prove that, if I was playing a paper game of Magic with you, I would have to show you every card that I had in my library. But on the digital client, it just happens, and you have to take for granted that, the computer counted the number of creatures, not the player. The player's not cheating because there's a third party, the computer system, that is arbitrating this transaction. So not only that, not only are there digital-only cards, but they're also taking cards, and they've even said specifically, they're taking cards that are in the current sets, the latest sets, and the ones that are trending as slightly overpowered or being played more often than not, they're tweaking them, and they are creating revised versions that exist only in the digital space in this alchemy subset of games that you can play.
Yes. So have you tried it?
No, of course not. That sounds terrible. I don't want to do this.
All right.
So, what I'm driving at here is that Wizards they experimented with it months ago, but now they've actually codified it. They've created a digital-only subset of Magic the Gathering. Right now, it only exists on one client, and it's just for like a specific handful sets of cards. But there's no end to this in sight. Like, this is only going to grow and be more. Like, I am predicting right now, I'm calling it, there is going to be a separate digital-only version of Magic. Whether it's called Magic or not will be, for them to decide. But I think there's going to be paper Magic like you and I like to play, and then this online-only thing that takes advantage of all of these digital-only capabilities.
Now, Josh, I did not doubt you when you predicted this the first time, although I was reluctant. If you'd asked me a timeline, I would have predicted that it would take a lot longer than it actually did. So props to you on that. I don't know what this means. I'm not moving that direction. I don't think I'm going to play it.
Yeah, I don't play it right now because I have no interest in having like another set of standard cards that I have to keep in my brain. It's like, oh, when I'm playing on this client, then the card says this. But if I'm playing on this client, then that same card does something different. That doesn't interest me.
I guess the idea is just that it's a more fun way to play online.
Well, but this is, I'm not going to call it a problem yet, but this is an issue for guys like you and I, because I still maintain that I want to play Paper Magic. I want to open packs. I want to draft at a table with 8 other people, and I want to hold physical cardboard in my hand. But this is clearly like like you mentioned the speed and the fact that they turned this singular event into now a perpetual format in their digital client. This just screams the fact that there is way more money in the digital client than there is in paper.
I don't know. You've stumbled into an area where I'm a little bit reluctant to go along. I think they're trying to just expand their player base, and maybe there's more possibility for expansion there, but I don't think it means they're going to abandon their traditional base.
No, I can see where you're going with that, but I will say that there is an overlap in people. Like, there is this large set of people that want to play Magic, and they're capturing a subset of that larger set of people that only want to play digital Magic or prefer digital Magic only. But in some senses, They are competing with themselves for like a player base that already exists. People that already play Magic and would prefer a different kind or different flavor. They're going to move between paper and digital. So
okay, well, before we completely lose our mothers, if you're listening to the podcast and you do or are interested in playing Magic, can I recommend to you what's called the Holiday Cube or the Vintage Cube? It is going on right now for the next couple of weeks. They put it up every holiday season. It's just a collection of the best cards in Magic. You don't get to keep them, but you get to draft them and build just a beautiful, powerful, interesting deck and play it against someone else with another powerful, interesting deck, and it is just a ton of fun.
If you are interested in playing Magic at all, do not play the Vintage Cube that is open for the holiday season, because if you've never played Magic before, you're going to get slaughtered and you're going to have a bad time. Introducing people to a game, Ben, does not include throwing them into... All right, Vintage Cube is admittedly like the deepest end of Magic that can be.
If you're interested, go to our YouTube channel. I'll put up 2 new videos that Josh and I recorded this week of us doing vintage drafts together, and you can check out and see what that experience is all about, and see if you're interested in that or not. I guess I was more recommending to experienced players that hadn't tried the online cube.
Yeah, if you've played Magic and you know how to draft, and you've never played the Vintage Cube, absolutely jump in the Vintage Cube. It is the purest form of fun drafting.
Now, there's a difference between their 2 online offerings, Magic the Gathering Arena and Magic the Gathering Online, and this can only take place on Magic the Gathering Online. And what else is happening to them?
I'm glad you brought this up. So again, it's weird that a company has 2 digital platforms that play essentially the same game, because that's what they do. They have Magic the Gathering Online, which came out, in the late 90s or some nonsense?
Yeah, and it looks
like it. It feels like it. It's clunky. It's hard to use. The interface is not intuitive at all. Please move some of the
But
buttons.
It can handle every card.
Yes, kind of. It can handle most of what is out there. Like, it handles all the sets all the way back through Vintage, but some of the newer stuff is tripping it up, and I'll come back to that point in a second.
But for all intents and purposes, it's their intent to have it be inclusive.
And it was the only way to play Magic the Gathering in a digital platform up until like a few years ago. Like in 2015 or 16 or something, when Magic the Gathering Arena.
No, wait, man. They were testing it. Remember we tried the beta when we went to Grand Prix Phoenix back in 2019?
Yeah, so this was only 2019 or 2020 that this thing came out.
Yeah, it's not that long.
Ugh. So it's all right. Magic the Gathering Arena is the newest platform, and it basically they took all of the updates like you would expect, all the fancy graphics, flashy effects. They've simplified some of the gameplay, some of the decision making. Like, it is, if you know how to work it, it is a better user experience playing on Arena. Now the problem is they don't have cards that go all the way back through Magic's history, which is why there still exists this other platform and why people still play on that one. There's also a lot of discussion to be had about the economy. I've actually switched off of Arena. I haven't played Arena in months. I'm switching 100% to Magic the Gathering Online. because when I pay money to Magic the Gathering Online, I can actually recoup some of that money because there's a secondary market and I can sell some of these cards back and get some actual real world value from these digital goods.
Yeah,
that doesn't,
which is probably a part of the reason, part of their impetus for building Arena in the first place.
Yes, Magic, Wizards of the Coast as a company doesn't like the idea that they don't control 100% of the fiscal transactions that happen with their intellectual property. Anyway, okay. Now back to the original point. Like, we have a new client and we have an old client. And the old client is interesting because they just picked up a new developer for the old client.
Which just means a software company that builds the software that makes it run.
Yes, but like some of the things that they pointed out was very interesting to me reading this article. Like they very much did a hand wavy, oh, we're having a new team take over and it's a great partnership, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but it's a sign of a crisis.
It's a sign that something is nothing is, there's something going wrong. And one of the things that they did mention specifically in there is they've struggled bringing commander cards into Magic the Gathering Online.
Yeah, because they do complicated things in multiplayer formats, and there's layers being applied, and it's hard to make it happen right.
One part of me wants to be like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but the other part of me wants to shrug, because if you're business, like if you are a business that is employed and your job 100% is to implement these cards into this software that you've developed, you should. And if the commander card shows up and is like, oh, well, this is really difficult, we're going to have to custom code this thing. You need to like take a couple steps back and be like, well, why is that? I thought this was robust enough to handle anything we threw at it, but all of a sudden it can't. Do we you need to go back to step zero here and like. Yeah,
they gave a handful of examples that I think are too deep to get into here in the podcast, but I could see why these new things that some of these cards are doing just really attack some of the fundamental assumptions of the code and turn the software on its ear.
That might be it. Like there are. Since Magic's inception back in the day, and since the creation of Magic the Gathering Online, we've had how many new card types, like things that didn't exist in the past that are now staples in when you play Magic. New abilities and effects and new text that we've never seen before.
That do new things with the rules and the zones and everything. It's complicated.
All right, so as a plug, like just in general, let me back away from this whole conversation and just say the fact that this game has existed in this way since the early 90s? Since
1994, yeah.
And they're still within this.
The same year that All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey came out.
I'm going to take a second of silence just to punish you. Listeners, this is Ben's fault. This moment of boredom here. All right, no, done with that. Like the idea that this limited design space was created by a man in 1994, and they're still finding new ways to like explore inside of those same mechanics. That's outstanding.
Yeah. Okay. So to tie a bow on all that, Josh has made some bold predictions that we will be able to call back on this moment here and see if they came true or not. In the meantime, there's a brand new set coming out that's like Cyberpunk Samurai revisit to the Kamigawa universe, which looks really cool.
Okay, so Kamigawa was the set that was the new hotness when I first learned Magic the Gathering. Like
back in 2004?
Yes. 2005 is when I learned Magic the Gathering. And it was on its way out when I got into it, and there was a handful of Kamigawa cards. My first deck that I felt like I did any good with was White Wheat.
Which was set in feudal Japan, right? It was set in feudal,
like a fantasy version of feudal Japan. The story behind it was there was samurais and ninjas, and like the mortal plane had stolen something from the spirit plane, and so there was this big war between the spirits and the mortals, and that was super cool, and I really liked the flavor of it. But like it
didn't play great, and it didn't sell great, and they haven't, of all the worlds in the intervening years that you and I played, this is the one they've never revisited.
It is universally pointed at as one of the worst sets that Magic has ever created.
It had some really critical fundamental design flaws.
I thought it was fun.
Parasitic mechanics and unfun play states.
It gets really into the weeds of Magic the Gathering. Like, you have to know a lot about Magic the Gathering to be able to realize why it wasn't fun to play in Kamigawa. A lot of people sat down, like new players, like, this isn't really fun. And it takes like real hardcore veterans to be like, but this is why it isn't fun. But what they've done since, and so going back to this, like you're talking about, there's a new set coming out that's set in that same like universe, that same design story space. So it's going to be very Eastern influence with dragons and spirits, I'm assuming. But all of the previews that we're seeing, like you said, are going to be like cyberpunk future. Oh, this is exactly what we want from Eastern culture. We want like the far future cyber dystopia. That's what I want.
Yes. So it's called Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. There's a quick trailer out there. I'll put a link in the show notes. Check it out. It looks cool.
If there are not mech suits that I can play from my hand in like as vehicles, like then that's a fail. That's a fail on Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast, you better have mech suits.
Josh, I want to tell you a story.
I love your stories, Ben.
Okay. So when I moved to the United Kingdom, to England, to the Wiltshire County in the West Country of England back in 2014, I was assigned to a base called RAF MOD Corsham, which is where they had their IT headquarters, which is the equivalent of DISA. It's just their like Defense Information Systems headquarters where they did the budgeting and planning and defense for all of their computer networks.
Man, that's like you take boring computer IT stuff and then make it like budgeting and just the management of boring IT stuff. And this gets even worse.
It was boring. But one day I heard a rumor that 100 feet below ground there was a mysterious labyrinth that had been kept secret for 60 years and had recently been declassified, and I wanted to know everything I could about it. So let me tell you about the top secret Burlington bunker underneath MOD Corsham in Wiltshire, UK.
All right, so two things. One, I already love the story. I don't care where it goes. Two, this is why it's so awesome to be in Europe. Stuff existed hundreds of years ago in Europe. In America, it's prairies and mountains.
So one fascinating geographical fact about England is that it's not unlike like the Pacific Ocean, Alaska, and Hawaii and stuff like that. They're on like this hotbed of geothermal activity. But in the UK, it's not. They're not on any fault lines. They're not on any volcanoes or anything like that. Very static, very boring, very English. Except for one place in the southwest of England, which is called Bath in the modern day, where there was a natural hot spring. The only place in all of the United Kingdom when there's a natural hot spring. And back when the Roman Empire had extended far enough that it included England in its realm, the Romans found it and turned it into a resort destination.
That sounds like something the Romans would do.
They came in, they drained the swamp, they built this beautiful resort that was staffed by slaves that built fires and heated the water, and there were baths, and they called it Bath, and the Romans were there. Well, what the Romans found is that in the nearby hills, there was what's called oolitic limestone, which is basically from 200 million years ago when all of this was underwater. There were deposits that turned into this really beautiful calcium carbonate with like bits of like seashells in it that just turn into beautiful architecture. And they started mining it out of the hillsides and turning it into the city. In fact, during the Victorian era, it was built up so much, the city of Bath just became this beautiful gem in the west country of England and became a resort destination even then. So basically from the Roman Empire until 1968, in this hillside near Bath, they were mining stone out of the nearby hillside in what is called Box and Corsham in the modern day. It became the city of Jane Austen's dreams, and she frequently wrote of Bath in her books. Well, in the early 19th century, when they were starting to develop the steam engine, they were trying to find places for it to go, and a famous engineer in England called Isambard Brunel said, hey, we need to get a train from Bath to London, but there's this big hill in the way. But we've shown that we can mine it because we've gone through the stone. I got some new engineering techniques, and we'll build the world's first ever like major underground train tunnel. So he had some guys start digging from the east side, and he precisely engineered it so they're mining from the west side. And in 1841, they met in the middle and created the Box Tunnel, which is a mile-long tunnel that goes underneath modern-day Corsham, UK, where my base was.
Let's just take a second to appreciate that engineering feat, because I can't walk a straight line for more than 10 feet with my eyes closed. And these guys dug a mile-long tunnel from both ends and met.
And met up perfectly in the center.
That's some good engineering there.
Okay, so this was like the first of its kind, this railroad tunnel, and then it established this rail line so you could get on a train in London, ride all the way out to Bath, and go to the resort out there and back and forth. And it benefited both towns and stuff like that. Anyway, those mines, as the Victorian era was coming to its close, started to be the decline of the British Empire, they got mined out. And they were just these old abandoned mines that were originally mined with like hand saws and horse carts to pull all of this stone out of the mountain and build the beautiful cities nearby. And so then they built the military base on top of it, and along comes World War II and the threat of German aerial invasion. So this small military base in the west of Corsham had this mile-long tunnel and miles of abandoned mining tunnels underneath the town. And they said, hey, we got an opportunity here of all this pre-existing infrastructure, if you will, that we could use as an advantage in the war against the Germans. So what they decided to do was they bought up a big portion of the abandoned mines underneath the town leading up to the edge of the tunnel, and they built a secret train station underneath the hillside and then opened up the tunnels and turned it into a strategic weapons depot.
Oh, that's awesome.
So initially in World War II, what they would do is they would have a passenger train in London get all loaded up with like it would look from the air to be a passenger train, and then they would have an identical train in the secret depot underneath the hill, and it would go in one side of the tunnel and look like it came out the other side of the tunnel, but it would be a whole different train.
Just full of strategic weapons.
Right, and they were storing all this and building it and stockpiling it underneath the mountain. In these military tunnels. And then as World War II went on and developed, they also found out that they needed to have a protected site to build aircraft so that they could defend themselves against the Germans in places that weren't vulnerable to strategic attack. So they expanded further out into these tunnels and started building aircraft in these tunnels underneath the mountain.
How big? These tunnels must be enormous.
They go on and on and on. I'll show you some photos and some maps. It's incredible. And it started to be like rings on a tree. So you have this secret station that's just a spur off of the main tunnel that goes through underneath Box. And then they have the weapons depot. And then they started to build an aircraft factory. And then as World War II started to come to an end, it went into a little bit into disrepair. And then the specter of Russian aggression started to raise its ugly head. They developed nuclear weapons. And all of a sudden the British became in need of a strategic underground bunker.
Oh, well, hey. There's this whole town where we've mined out like the whole bottom of it.
But they decided in order for it to be the most effective, it needed to be an utter secret. So then they took these tunnels and they developed them extensively into an underground continuity of operations, alternate government operation location to include residences for the Queen and Parliament, cafeteria, a hospital, independent water supply, food stores, a BBC broadcast station.
Okay. Yeah, like if you're talking about like a fallback position to make sure the government of a country
continuity of government
can continue, you're talking thousands of people.
Yes,
and the space and the infrastructure for like a small city exists in these tunnels underneath an Air Force base.
Yes, and it was up until either the late 90s or the early 2000s, I can't remember which, I apologize, it was classified top secret that it even existed.
Yeah, it would have to be, because if it wasn't top secret, then it would get blown up.
And now there was dozens and dozens of workers that had to go down and build this place and test it and move, and they probably did exercises where they'd bring everybody out there and see if they could operate from that location and that kind of thing. And this just existed under there for dozens of years. And then they reached a point where it was just too expensive to pay for. The Berlin Wall fell, the Cold War kind of ended, and it wasn't so important anymore. And it changed hands of who owned it in government, and it became declassified because they couldn't afford to pay for it anymore. And went into caretaker status. And in the intervening time, they also added a command and control bunker and some computer operation centers. And just like the rings on a tree, there was the weapons depot and the bunkers and the aircraft factory and the continuity of government operations and the operations center. And this just got built into this massive underground complex with all of these buildings and fascinating historical things. And I started to hear rumors that it was under there. But even though it had been declassified, it was just a lot of work for them to like make it open to the public where you could go down there for tours. So it was only like there was 3 guys on base that were the caretakers of it that went down there and just made sure the ceiling wasn't caving in and that everything was fine in case they needed it or something. But they were the only ones allowed down there.
Oh man, like, I can't even imagine like where do you even start with something like that? Oh hey, by the way, there is this city that we built underground in World War II with probably not modern standards, what we would consider of engineering and structural support. Hey, just make sure, like, you know, it's fine for the next foreseeable future. That's
right. Just hang on to it in case we come up with another use for it, so it doesn't just fall into complete disrepair.
Imagine that landing on your desk and just being like, "No, I think I'd actually rather retire."
Yeah, they were the special kind of guys. You know, they're moles. They just go spend their whole day underground just maintaining this place. So I hear rumors that this is out there, and immediately, you know me, how I am about having new and unique experiences.
I'm surprised you didn't take a shovel out into a field and try to get down in there yourself.
And once you know this, if you look around above ground, you can see things that don't have any other reasonable explanation. Like this thing that just looks like a giant air vent on the way to the gym. And there must have been dozens of years where there was just trucks coming up and sending materials and stuff down, and only a few people knew about it, but no one could talk about it. And it was, you know, done under cover of darkness or whatever, brought in by secret trains.
Let's just talk about the sheer tonnage of dirt that had to get moved. Like, where did all this dirt go?
So all that got moved by the Romans.
No, but
all they did was basically reinforce the abandoned stone mine and turn it into this base.
Even all these rings on this tree that you keep talking about, with all these additions and these expansions, that was all existing tunnel network?
Existing tunnel networks.
Oh, well, that's just kudos to the Romans. Romans, you dug out, what, like hundreds of thousands of square footage?
The mining went on, and probably the most of it happened in the 19th and early 20th centuries.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, you're busting my Roman bubble a bit, but still, I mean, this is an impressive feat of engineering, no matter how you slice it.
Yes. Okay, but here's the thing. When they bought the tunnels and built the base, they basically only took about half of the existing abandoned mines underneath the mountain. And I heard a rumor that in a pub on the other side of the mountain where we go for like going aways, there were guys. Okay, so the one half of the mines was abandoned and unimproved.
Okay.
Since 1968, when they'd mined it all out.
Hang on. I think I see where you're going. And so theoretically, there's a part of the mine that is unowned, that's not owned by the government, that just kind of exists, that theoretically, if you could find a way into, and then you could navigate, you could find your way into the giant declassified network of amazing underground nonsense.
Yes.
Did you do that? Is that what you did? Did you go find a random backdoor into a secret classified government like structure of a country that you were not a citizen of?
I talked to a guy who talked to another guy, and I found a guy, and then because I was the young men's leader at my church, I got a group of 10 boys together. We got our headlamps on.
You can't just go down there by yourself. You got to take a bunch of innocent young bucks with you.
And we crawled into these abandoned mines, and it was fascinating. Josh, every video game I've ever played where you go down into a dungeon in its supposed labyrinth where you could get lost, all the caves I've been in my life were natural caves that used to be lava flows or whatever, and they followed a very logical structure. You know, lava in, lava out. This was nothing like this. This was come to a 10-way intersection and go to the right at 2 o'clock, and then you come to another 10-way intersection, and you come to another 10-way intersection, and you come to another 10-way intersection.
Okay, I want to make this clear. That from everything that I understand about existence in the modern world, going into an abandoned mine is quite possibly the number one most dangerous thing that you can do with your life.
Okay, so the British, very probably similar to the Americans, the guy that bought the mines after they were abandoned in 1968 and went into caretaker status basically was able to be grandfathered into not having to fully improve them by basically not making any changes to it. As long as he didn't do anything to it, it remained in this like
quasi-historical preservation mode?
Yes, status where if someone went down there and got trapped and died, it wasn't his fault.
That's so the first thing that you decide to do is not only grab yourself but 10 of your closest friends, and that's going to this horrible death trap.
We got this guy at the local pub who is renowned for knowing his way around the mines. And we walked out into the middle of nowhere, disappeared into a hole in the ground, and stepped into another world.
Did you bring like food and water? Like how long were you down there?
So we walked through these mines, and it was the very definition of a labyrinth. You could see the tracks in the ground where the horse-drawn carts had dragged thousands upon millions of pounds of stone out of this mine. There were places where the saws that they'd used had been abandoned in place, and the cranes that they'd used to pull the stone out with just the power of humans and horses were still there. And he explained to us how it worked and stuff, and we wandered around, and we got to the part of the mines where it was walled off before we got to the Ministry of Defense complex.
Oh, so you didn't make it to the underground city.
It was completely walled off. We couldn't get into the underground city. I wandered through the unimproved portion of the mine. So I had all that in my mind. We enjoyed it. There was one place where they called it the cathedral, and it went up several stories. But for the most part, it was just these vague gray tunnels. It felt like you'd get lost forever. There were places where the ceiling had collapsed in, and it was And so we take the boys out, had a great adventure, got out safe. Nobody got hurt. Nothing went wrong. And I still retained in my mind this dream and vision of getting into the other side of the tunnels before I left.
No words. They should have sent a poet. Just so many comments. First of all, you have no right to be alive. Like, if you think this is a good idea to find some drunkard at the pub and pry him out of the bottom of an ale glass, and don't you dare correct me. That's how I imagine this is.
No, I'm not going to.
And have him show you a hole in the ground so you can go crawl into miles of unmapped, uncharted, underground, unimproved, like horrible mining nonsense.
Where the ceiling is collapsing.
Yeah, where it's actively falling apart in places. Oh, it's totally fine. Not only will I go, I will also take a bunch of these kids with me, because why not?
I'll post a photo of our group in the show notes.
All right. So earlier, when I said like when your family wins all of these raffles, and when you go to these like squadron events, and that might be the universe just doing you a solid, I take that back. The universe does you a solid when you find yourself in these situations that you put yourself in, and you don't die. Like,
okay, so I got to get to the next part.
There's more.
I go back to my office.
How can there be more?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to be able to rest until I see the other part of the mines. I want to see the codename Burlington underground bunker. So I get to know the guy who's the guy that controls it. I start sending him stuff, finding out what his favorite drink is, sending him emails every week and stuff, and trying to get on the list of people that are allowed to go down there. And he keeps stiff-arming me and just telling me I can't do it, telling me I can't do it. And then he hits me with the bureaucracy. I'm like, fine, I can do bureaucracy. You got to do the safety training. You got to get the approvals. I'm like, whatever. I pull out my American card and kind of get through all that stuff. My Raider comes around for his annual visit, and I'm like, this is my chance. So I found an opening in the schedule. He's going to be there. I tell him, we got this visiting colonel from the secretary of the Air Force's department.
You're kidding me. You took like an American, like almost a dignitary. Oh, well, this guy, he's very important. He's showing up. What could be better to do than drag him down to these abandoned mines for no reason?
Exactly. So I got it all signed up, and then the day came, and we went to this building on campus that I'd never been to before, and they took us in, and we went in an elevator shaft. It gave us our helmet and our light, and we went in this elevator shaft down into the depths of this base I've been on top of for 3 years, and it was awe-inspiring. Did you ever go into Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs?
I never did go into Cheyenne Mountain, no.
It was like that, but bigger.
But bigger. All right, we're talking about...
Cheyenne Mountain's only supposed to hold like a couple hundred people. This was like supposed to hold like the entirety of Parliament from London.
No, I get that. And Parliament's not going anywhere without their families and their support staff and all that nonsense.
So they took us to the train station first, and we did it in the order that I said. Here's where this opened up back in World War II, where it was a weapons depot. Here's the aircraft factory. And it was more old and more abandoned from the middle going out. And then we saw the command and control bunker. And then we came to the continuity of government bunker, codenamed Burlington. And it was still stocked.
Oh.
But abandoned for 30 years. So it was like being in like Half-Life. You're in these caverns with these rooms. There's like hospital beds, but all the sheets are moldy and it looks like a horror movie. And there's like a cafeteria that's filled with tables and chairs, but they're like tumbled over and dusty. And there's a kitchen that it had like coffee makers and mixers in it. There were pallets of stationery, and they let us take some. I have a piece. It's got like the Queen's head in watermark in this stationery, and it was just moldy and rotting.
Tell me it was also pitch black through this entire place.
No. It was lit and painted. Oh. So they would light it up as we were going through.
It's much cooler if it's just natural cave caverns and none of the lights work.
Much. If you're lighting it with a flashlight that's attached to the end of your rifle. Yes, I understand. Okay, so we're going and seeing all this, and we see the BBC broadcast center that's filled with like 60s era electronics, and there's like all the streets are named with very British sounding names, like
Worcestershire,
Wiltshire, yes, yeah. And there was an area where some Cold War era painter had come down and done murals on the wall that had made it onto some National Historic Register, so we weren't allowed to touch them, but they were going to become archived or something like that. So
how do you get that job? Like, hang on, let's pause your story for a second. It's like we are looking for a mural artist to come down to our top secret bunker to paint a pretty mural on a random wall in this underground city that you can never talk about.
I'll put a link in the show notes, probably to a video or at least some photos. I can't remember all the rest of that story.
But here's the thing, like if you're talking about building a building underground, that's a thing that the defense minister does. Like setting up a hospital, getting all of the infrastructure for that all makes sense. Hiring a random mural artist to spruce up your underground like top secret base, that's where I draw the line of this doesn't make any sense. How did this pass the budget committee?
You could still see, like one room I went into was filled with, it was empty, but you could still see dust tracks where it was filled with row upon row of World War II era munitions. Like you could see silhouettes of bombs on the ground. Wow.
Like the old school ones with that teardrop shape and the
fins. Yes.
That is outstanding.
There were rooms filled with like antique typewriters, and it just went on and on and on. It took my breath away. I've got a coffee table book of it. When it all became declassified, some reporters went down there, and some BBC reporters did a report on it. And there's a great website that has maps and photos and stories and all kinds of stuff. I'll put links to all that in the show notes. But I got to see it with my own eyes, and it was one of my greatest experiences when I was in Europe.
And I love how the first attempt that you made to get into this place was to find some drunk, and don't correct me because that's how he is in my life, find some drunk at a pub on the other side of the mountain to drag you through some abandoned mine to see if you can break into it against the law. That's outstanding.
It was a good time.
Again, Ben, you confound me with like the depth and richness of the life that you have lived. It's insane. Like, these stories can't be real. This is the kind of crap that the most interesting man in the world makes up for his TV commercials.
I can't believe I hadn't told you that one before. Anyway, thank you to the Roman Empire for starting all of the chain events that led to me viewing the Burlington bunker.
That's the only thing you want to thank the Roman Empire for?
And some random drunk guy in a pub in box.
I'm going to start with roads. Thank you, Rome, for roads. And I'm going to end with gladiatorial combat. That's still a thing.
Okay, so next time on the Bad at Magic podcast, it will be our first broadcast of 2022, and I think we need to talk about New Year's resolutions. So, listeners, if you want to engage in the discussion, talk about New Year's resolutions, I'll put up a thread on our Reddit, our subreddit, or you can go on Facebook, and we can start the discussion now, hear what some of yours are, and we'll talk about some ours here on the podcast.
It'll be an excellent episode to listen on your inaugural trip to the gym for 2022.
Now, back in episode 56, you and I had kind of offhandedly discussed the idea that after we talked about all of our favorite things, that we should do a bonus episode that we make available to our supporters on our Patreon, patreon.com/badatmagic. And so we did. We recorded that this week, and by the time this episode goes live, that will be available. So I think we have 4 or 5 bonus episodes that are available to our Patreon supporters. No minimum contribution level. If you love the podcast and you want some bonus content, there's at least 4 or 5 bonus episodes out there on Patreon you can go and listen to right now.
I like to think of our bonus episodes that we do as a thank you. It's like the people that do want to contribute and go that extra mile to try to make this podcast a real thing. Like, you should get some exclusive content and some more ridiculous nonsense that me and Ben talk about. And so that's how we're giving back.
Yeah. So thank you. We're reaching the end of the year here. It's the holiday season. Happy holidays to everyone, and thank you for being listeners to the podcast.
Absolutely. If you like what we do, consider sharing us with a friend. That's the least you can do. If you like what we talk about, maybe your friends will too. If you really want to help us out, consider taking your phone out of your pocket right now and giving us a good rating on the podcast player of your choice. It is insane, the visibility we get from that stuff. And if you just can't get enough, we have bonus episodes available if you want to consider becoming a patron on our Patreon.
And until next time, try to be a little less bad at magic.